Once you've imported and organized the footage in the project and have begun screening it, and hopefully even begun marking your desired shots, it's finally time to start editing the shots into the timeline. So let's take a look at that. All right, so if you went through all of the interviews of Barbara and Rebecca from the previous movie and marked all of your sound bites and subclipped everything, then great job. However, I'm not expecting that you absolutely did, so I've done that for you down here in the 2.4 bin. And as you can see, we have several bins. We have rough cuts, which we'll take a look at later, and then subclips. We have our Barbara subclips, and then right below that we have some subclips from Rebecca. Okay, so the first one I want to take a look at is the one we were working on in the last movie from Barbara. This one right here, Greyhounds Are Easy. So I'm just going to double click to load that into the source monitor. Now, if we were marking the shot, then we would go through this and set our in and our out points and then bring it in. But we actually just did that when we subclipped it. So in that sense, I can edit it straight into the timeline. Now, there are quite a few ways you can begin editing, but for now, we'll start simple. So I'll just drag and drop into the timeline like so. All right, so when I did that, several things happened. We have the marked portion of the shot here in the timeline. We can see the visual representation here in the program monitor. And then we also have the sequence here in my project pane, and I want to rename that right away. Okay, so I'm just going to click on it, and I'm just going to call this Greyhounds Rough Cut, and then my initials and the date. Okay. So now I'll press tilde to maximize this, and let's go ahead and bring that into our 2.4 rough cuts bin. Okay, there we go. We're nice and organized. So I'll press tilde again to minimize, and let's move on. All right, so if we come back down to our subclips, the next one that I want to take a look at is this one right here, okay, where she talks about them being quiet and clean and polite. I'll go ahead and load that. And I just want to play this.
They are quiet, they are clean, they are polite.
Okay, so we want that to come directly after the clip that we currently have edited into the timeline. And we're going to start moving beyond dragging and dropping to focus on editing with the keyboard. So we want to make sure that the playhead is at the end here. Now there's a couple ways that you can do that. Just make sure that the timeline is selected, and your up and down arrow keys will help you out. So if I press up, I go backward, and if I press down, I go forward. And now I'm set up perfectly for this edit. Another way is to shift drag. Okay, so if I have my playhead here in the middle and I want to just quickly snap to the end here, I can press shift as I drag, and it snaps to that edit. All right, so either way, but do make sure that you're flush up against the last clip or you'll have a flash frame. All right, so again, I could mark an in and an out here, but I've already done that through subclipping. So I'm just going to come to the beginning, and this time, instead of dragging and dropping, I'm going to perform an insert edit. That's right here on the user interface, or the comma key on the keyboard. All right, so I've got my shot loaded. I've got my playhead where I want the shot to go. The other thing you need to make sure to check is your track selectors. I have video and audio from my source going to video and audio in my sequence. So we're all set up. So I'll just press the comma key, and down it comes. And I'm just going to play over these two clips to see what we think.
Seen a greyhound before, they are very surprised at how easy these guys are. They are quiet, they are clean, they are polite.
All right, not bad. But I think what I want to do is insert a soundbite in between these two, sort of explaining how greyhounds are not as hyper and physically demanding as one might think, because that, after all, is sort of the theme of this piece. The rescue organization wants to squelch those preconceptions that greyhound dogs are hyper. So let's find that. First, I'm going to park right in between these two shots so I can use my up arrow key to get there, okay? I could also shift drag to snap to that. And I want to find the soundbite where she talks about greyhounds not being hyper. And I think this is it, the very first one. Greyhounds are not hyper. I'm going to load this and let's play it.
And people often think that they're going to be crazy lunatics because of their race dogs. And it's just not the case.
All right, perfect. So I'm going to come to the beginning here, and now we're going to do another insert edit. All right, so the only difference is that instead of doing an insert edit to the end of the timeline, we're doing it right in between these two shots. So we've got the track selectors marked appropriately, video going to video, audio going to audio, and I'll press comma, and there we go. Let me undo that for just a moment because I want to show you what happens when you don't have the track selector set up properly. Okay, so let me undo that, Command Z or Control Z on a PC. And for example, I'll turn off video on the source side and I'll press comma, and you can see that just my audio was edited in. All right, so sometimes you want to do that. Sometimes you need to strategically just lay in one or the other. But in our situation, that's not the case. So we'll turn them both on, press my comma key to insert, and we're good to go. Now, I want to move to a version of the sequence where I've already gone through and kept inserting sound bites. And that is up here on Greyhound Rough Cut 1. So I'll load this. And I'll play the first few edits. We've already taken a look at these first two, but I'll start right here and then go forward just a little bit.
That they're race dogs, and it's just not the case. They are quiet, they are clean, they are polite.
They are affectionate but not needy. They are lazy, but they get bursts of energy.
They're not always in your face.
While I'm reading,
All right, so we've just sort of slapped everything down there, but now we want to start moving things around. Specifically, I want to take a look at these two clips right here. I've marked them with markers so you can identify them. I'm going to zoom in by pressing plus a couple of times. And I want to swap these two positions because I've got Barbara speaking here, and then I have Rebecca speaking here and here. But if I swapped these two clips, then I could go back and forth between Barbara, then Rebecca, then Barbara, then Rebecca, which is what I want. So I'm going to select this clip, and to swap shots in Premiere Pro, you select the clip and then you hold down Command and Option or Control and Alt on a PC as you drag. That's going to allow you to cleanly change these shot positions. So I'm on a Mac, so I'm going to hold down Command and Option. And notice that the icon changes a little bit. I have this little blue arrow in between two lines, and I'm going to drag, and it snaps to this edit, and I release, and I've cleanly swapped those shots. So I'll play over this.
they are affectionate but not needy.
They are quiet, they are clean, they are polite.
They are lazy.
All right, perfect. That's what I wanted to do there. Just to show you, if I wouldn't have held down any modifiers and I would have just dragged, it just overwrites the shot. All right, not what we want. So you do need to hold down those modifiers in order to cleanly swap those shots. Now, one more thing. I'd like to remove some of Rebecca's lines. She gets a little bit of emotional, and we want to try to make her sound a little bit more succinct. So I'm going to come downstream here, and I've actually marked with markers the section that I want to remove. I'm going to play it for you so you can see what we're talking about, though. And I'll back up just a little bit so that we go into that edit.
Quiet.
The beautiful part about bringing Blitz home that first day was how he jumped on my sofa and he was so happy to be in a home, and he just stretched his long body the full length of that sofa and took a big sigh and looked at me with this look of such pleasure, such.
All right. So she's definitely very emotional there. She's talking about rescuing this dog and bringing him home, but we don't have that much time for her to express herself. So I think we can still get the emotion, but just extract this middle part here. So let's zoom in, plus, and I'm going to just find this part where I want to start the extraction.
On my sofa.
Right about there. And what I'm going to do is mark an in point by pressing I, okay? And I have my video and audio selected. It's important that you make sure that you have the appropriate track selected. And now I'm going to come down here and find the appropriate out point.
Length of that sofa and took a big sigh.
All right, I want it right before and took a big sigh. So I'm going to use my JKL keys to really hone in on this. About right there, and I'll mark an out point. Okay, so this is the section that I'd like to remove, and now I'm going to perform an extract. An extract is this button on the user interface or the apostrophe key. Okay, so it's very common to just mark an in and an out with I and O and then press apostrophe, and it's gone. All right, so in, out, extract, you'll use that a lot. And let's just play over it to make sure that it sounds okay.
Was how he jumped on my sofa and took a big sigh.
All right, pretty good. Obviously, there's a visual jump cut there, but not a problem. We'll cover that up with B-roll in a future movie. All right, so at this stage, this is called the radio edit because you're really focusing on what you hear. We're laying the foundation of interviews here to tell our story. So you want to make sure that the foundation sounds as good as possible. Later, we'll come back and start laying the appropriate visuals, but for right now, we're creating the backbone upon which everything else will lie.